Welcome to Fans of the Forge. I'm Chris. To my left we have
Sean.
And to my right we have
Teresa.
And actually, I do not know if I started recording the camera.
Good job.
Oh, man.
It's good. All right.
Rookie.
You know what? That's fine. We'll keep it. It stays in. And today's special guest, we are doing an interview with Jason Knight. And Jason, you're on now. So, thank you for coming on with us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I just want to support you guys, and I like it that you are fans of the Forge. I think that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a very interesting week for us last week when I was at work one morning and I saw on my Instagram notifications Jason Knight started following you on Instagram, and I'm like, what? And then I happened to see all of a sudden a message pop through like, hey, what do you guys do? I'm like, oh my god, what is going on right now?
That's cool.
Yeah, so we're super excited, and again, we are fans of the Forge, so we basically just started doing wrap-ups of this past season so far of the Forge and Fire episodes because we all kind of started watching recently, so we missed a lot of the earlier seasons, but we've gone back and we actually watched some episodes that you were a judge on over the last week, and we put together some questions for you and see what you think here. So, who wants to start us off? Me?
You lead with this one,
Yeah.
man.
All right.
So I am out in Golden, Colorado right now. We're traveling, and me and my son are going to do a drawing class in Provo. So we're just kind of wandering. We stopped at a buddy of mine's house who's a really good bladesmith named Peter Kohler, and we're just kind of goofing off a bit.
Great. That sounds like fun. So, our first question. As I was kind of doing a little bit more research into your background, I noticed one of the common themes that came up when you talked to people when they asked about how you got into bladesmithing. You mentioned that you were into fantasy and adventure stories as you were growing up, and that kind of led you down the route of wanting to make your own weapons to be able to slay monsters, that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, so I like that. That's a good subject. I grew up in the largest virgin cypress swamp left on the earth, a place called Francis Beidler Forest. There are trees in there that are 1,500 years old, and when people go, oh, I'd like to see what a primeval forest looks like, well, I grew up in that swamp. It's down in Harleyville, South Carolina. And my dad would read me stories by Edgar Rice Burroughs. He would read me John Carter of Mars and Tarzan, and he would read me Robert E. Howard's Conan, and he would be like, okay, now you have to make weapons for these worlds. You're going to go there at another time. And I was like, okay, yeah. And he also had me convinced that there were killer whales and sharks in the carpet, and the couch was a boat. But, like, you know what I'm saying? I was a kid, so I believed this. Like, I was like, I'm down, man. I'm down with this. So that was one of the things that probably led me to making knives, but I was always making tools. I was always making things. I'd sharpen sticks. I would flint knap. I would break rocks and glass and anything I could do to make something that was an edge. So I'm a knife user and I'm also a knife maker. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit if that's okay.
Of course.
It's very important. You see a lot of knife makers. They're just making knives because, oh, that knife is cool or this knife is cool. So I make knives based on my experience, and I have made and taken my knives from Alaska to Nicaragua and all over the United States, and I've used them from peeling critters or carving wood or doing sculpture, to cooking dinner. So I have a lot of experience in different types of knives, knife usage, but also that makes me want to say, I want to make this knife to do this thing, and then I give it some style. But the background is fantastical. My favorite word is phantasmagoric.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. So, beyond the ones that you named, like fantasy-wise, just hit that one last time. Beyond the books that you mentioned, are there any more recent movies or anything that have really struck your fancy when it came to a fantasy book or movie that has come out recently?
movies really don't strike my fancy to get me in, excited about an idea. I read a lot of J.R.R. Tolkien when I was a kid. In the 90s sometime, George R.R. Martin, I hate that son of a bitch, came out with the Game of Thrones series, and I read that, and I was just like, oh, this guy, he made it so dark, and but I like the ideas because they would talk about these weapons that they had in there. So I thought that was cool. But what I make is not fantasy at all. When I make stuff, it is first very practical, but then I add curves and lines, and I try to make them sexy and look good too.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if I'm saying something that doesn't make sense, just say, be more specific or elaborate or whatever.
All right, sure. All right, hold on 1 second here. Just slide this back a little bit.
So I am in Golden, Colorado, and in Golden, Colorado, they make Coors. So I don't know what y'all are drinking out of a coffee mug, but like...
Oh.
We got nothing right now.
I forgot to get us a beer. I usually get us a beer before we start recording, and it was like...
Man, it's always best. I just spilled mine on me, so...
Did you come up with the term "be a maker, not a taker"? Would you have on T-shirts?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. Would you like me to elaborate?
Yes, please.
All right, so you guys are makers, and I'll tell you why. You have a passion, and you started this show, and I saw that, and I wanted to help if I could in any way to encourage people to view what you're doing because you're excited about something and you want to draw people in. So you're making a difference. You're making a change. You're starting with you. You're not saying, I wish somebody would make a show that we could talk about Forged in Fire. Well, you did it. So that makes a difference. Most of the time I hear people that are even in positions of power, and they'll say, well, I'm tired of them doing this. Well, do something about it. Start with you. So I make knives. I'm a blacksmith. I make wood carvings. I do sculpture. I try to encourage people. I try to teach. I try to make a difference. And be a maker is the key word. Not a taker is the lesser so point. And if somebody comes to you and says, well, what does that mean? Well, not a taker. Then they're a taker probably. I've gotten approached by that twice so far, and they were a little grumpy about it. And I'm just like, yeah, I think you need to study the first half. The second half isn't important. First half is important. Be a maker. I want it to be a movement, and I want people to be encouraged. We live in a culture of people who are, we're deceived right off the kick. Oh, I'm gonna get me mine. I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna take that. Hey, make that. You make the difference. I started with nothing as a bladesmith. I've been making knives for 20 years professionally. Before that, I did wood sculpture. I did wood carving. I did furniture. I carved in stone. I made things out of antler and ivory and all kinds of stuff. Anything I get my hands on. I was always making something ever since I was a little kid. Even wooden swords, it doesn't matter. I was making things because they didn't exist. That stuff didn't exist. And I was like, man, I wish somebody would make that. And if you ever go somewhere and you're thinking, wow, they should have this, well, then go make it. Go make it and share it. That's the most important part. Share it. Share your idea. The why is the most important part. What and how, that's cool. But I like to use the Wright brothers for an example of being a maker. These guys were building bicycles in a time where people were going, wow, we should, flying, that's really crazy. That's a crazy thing. Do you know what the Wright brothers knew about flying airplanes?
Nothing.
They didn't know anything. Nothing. They didn't even know how to do it. But you know what? They had a passion, so they did it because they had a why. And why is always the target. It's the most important part.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So in addition to the crafting that you've done, the bladesmithing and the woodworking and the sculpturing, what about the 3D printing community and the technology aspect? I think you can...
I'll explain a little further. So when I first saw the be a maker, the term that maker term has been really associated with the 3D printing technologies that have been coming out over the last few years. So I didn't know if that was also possibly associated, or if you had at least had any experience with 3D printing in any of the work that you're doing.
Let me show you someone who has. This is my son, Tristan.
Hello.
He is the one who, he was like, oh, look at that 3D printer. That's so cool. And so he has a 3D printer, and he just came up with stuff to print on it and work it out. But I didn't know anything about the term. My son has been forging and making things since he was just a wee lad, drawing. He fills a sketchbook up every couple days, I think, or maybe exaggerating, maybe it's every couple weeks. But I didn't know about that. I knew about the maker movement, but I researched it. So I be a maker, not a taker.com, or we got all that stuff now. I have something called Blacksmith Couture, which I have the shirts, the Be a Maker shirts. This isn't one of them, but I want that movement to grow. I want to encourage people. I want people to think about it, like when they see things. But I know about it, and I'm very excited about 3D printing. I've even have some of the things I've prototyped.
Yep.
Have been 3D printed. I use lasers, I use CNC, I use every piece of technology that I can possibly use. At heart, I am a bladesmith, I am a designer, and I go forward that as rapidly as possible, and I come up with things I can overwhelm people with designs and ideas. And so I love the 3D printing aspect, but I was a little ignorant on that, honestly. My son Tristan knew about it, but I didn't think about it when I came up with that term, because it's something I said on the show several times. I was like, be a maker.
Yeah.
Great. So I know I've read your bio. We have, at least online, but for those that haven't or don't know, is how did you learn to bladesmith?
How do you learn to bladesmith? I know a lot of people who taught themselves. We live in the age of YouTube, and that's a really cool place to see some great videos on how to forge. And one of the things I recommend when I think of people who are doing bladesmithing, that are actually showing it and teaching it, there's a lot of really hot topic areas in this field right now, and I can get myself into a lot of trouble, which I don't really give a damn. I'll be happy to get in trouble. I want bladesmithing to be accepted into the American fine craft movement, and right now it's not. Blacksmithing is, but blades are really kind of not. And so I used to teach with an organization. I really dearly loved them. I learned essentially how to forge with the American Bladesmith Society back in 2001. I took an introduction to bladesmithing class, but what I found is the times have changed, and I've developed techniques to make that more rapid, to make that happen like fast. And I want to show people, to get them interested, and say, here's what you need, here's what you do, and here's how it is. So I've turned a teaching seminar that used to be 2 weeks, which, I mean, who has 2 weeks to take 2 weeks to do? I mean, that's ridiculous. So I turned it into 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And what I've found is I've had people come from Alaska, Switzerland, Taiwan, all over the world to come and take this with me. And I don't say class or teach or school. I say Makers Forge Studio. And that's what I was telling you. And I charge a lot of money for it, but I'm excited about it. I do that because if you don't, I learned that I would teach people for free all the time, and they didn't really care. But the people who I would make them commit to, it's like a commitment. Like once you say, I'm involved because I have my earnings, I have my part of my time involved. So you're going to share your time with me. I'm going to share my time with you. People walk away with a smile on their face. And if they're really passionate, they will set up their own forge. They will do their own thing. I have 10 people on my wall who tested with me for their Master Bladesmith rating. And there's only about 100 of us living at any given time. And 2 or 3 people a year receive their, they're awarded their Mastersmith rating, but people die off every year. So what I want to do is set up something a little bit more relevant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I giving a long answer? Because I want to be elaborate and I want to make sense. But I like the idea of the Maker's Forge Studio. You come to my studio, you're the maker. It's your forge. And you become a part of the process. And so people will always say, oh, that's blacksmithing or bladesmithing. That's a dying art. And I go, no, it's a renaissance.
Yeah.
Be a part of the Renaissance. Be a part of the Renaissance.
Yeah, and from the show, I didn't know that there was a community like that just for bladesmithing, right? And now it's like they're going into we're doing this show, and there's a huge community. There's a huge thing. We just see with the tons of YouTube videos out there that this is, I guess, something that's maybe not well known, but it's actually pretty big, and it's pretty cool to see that. And it's a really welcoming community too. Like everyone's really into it, and it seems very inclusive.
When I'm showing someone things, like I've got a lot of designs out there. When you think about knife design, like just knife designs, let's take 100%, however, whatever the number is, it doesn't matter, but the percentage, we'll go 100%. So of the 100%, 2% are designers. 10% are full-time makers of any given thing, forging or stock removal. All the rest of the people are just trying to figure it out and make it. And I can elaborate on that later. I get attacked for that sometimes, but I share every design that I have because I'm about 20 deep always. I've always got something new. I've always got something that I'm thinking about or working on. I'm like, oh, this is cool, and I'll share that. It could be a finish. It could be a design. It could be a way to do something. It could be a technique. And I want to share it. I want people to learn. I want it to be something fun for them. One of the things that drives me crazy is when people go, I want to make knives for a living. I was like, that's really hard. That's a really difficult road to take. If y'all are familiar with the tattoo community, I don't know if you are or not.
A little bit,
it's very difficult today to go out and make a living as a tattoo artist. There's a lot of tattoo artists, but there's not a lot of good ones.
Right.
And when you find a good one, they struggle themselves to make a living. I struggled to make a living for many, many, many years until I began to learn things about business and how to do business, how to conduct things to make it make sense, how to share, how to lift other people up. When I had ideas that I couldn't use, I would give them to someone else, and they would be like, oh man, thanks, I needed that right at the right time. And then they would share that back with me.
That's awesome.
Great.
There's also a large or a renaissance of beards. So I want to ask, how did you learn to beard? Is there a secret elixir? Because I got nothing happening here. This is a week of not shaving. Nothing happened.
Well, I don't grow hair much of anywhere else except on my face. I don't have hair on my legs, my chest, my back. I'm not a hairy guy, but I can grow a beard pretty fast, and I shave it off all the time. So if you guys have seen me before, you probably noticed my beard's like down to here.
Yeah.
I kind of get sick of it, and often I shave it off. I'll shave it completely off, but I do like this crazy haircut. I like to have fun haircuts. And I've had a mohawk for a lot of years, but I think when I went on the show, they didn't like that, so they cut the back of it off or something. So, but yeah, you can grow hair and just have fun. I should have come up with some beard elixir or whatever. But, yeah.
You were talking about how you do collaborations with other people, and I noticed in going through it, the website today, you had a couple that I forget what website I saw them on, but you had collaborated with Doug Marcaida from the show.
Right.
And when it comes to doing a collaboration like that, say with Doug, who, as far as I understand, hasn't really made many blades in his lifetime.
Right. His dad doesn't let him touch tools. He's not allowed to play with the tools.
Oh, no. Oh, come
That's what
on.
Doug says. My dad never let me use the tools. So I was like, okay.
So when you're doing a collaboration with Doug, is it just like you guys work on the design together and like sketch something out, and then you take that to the forge and actually make it?
All right, here's how. For the one that he and I did, one of the things that I've always loved is the Kukri. And that's like this knife that I have here. The Kukri is one of my favorite designs. I've always loved it since I was a kid. So it's kind of been the knife that I aspired to make. And once I figured out how to do it, I just developed my own version of it. I wanted to reinvent it into something where I thought was like, this is what I'm used to, but maybe this is better. So when I started hanging out with Doug, me and him hit it off right off the kick. He's a good dude. We're friends. And he's like, hey, we should do a Kukri for Kali martial arts. And I was like, okay. So I studied Kali a little bit with Doug, not much, but a little bit. And so we downsized the Kukri because I normally make them really like 12 inches or bigger. I mean, I make a really huge Kukri, which is an awesome thing to go through the woods with and stuff. And so I just took my design and I downsized it to the specifications that would be good for Kali martial arts. And then we made a smaller one, and then we were like, hey, we could take the smaller one and turn it into a folder. So that's what we did. We originally had 3 designs. I designed them. Doug endorsed them through his martial arts experience. He's a Kali master. Mm-hmm. And that's how that worked out. So the design was basically Doug going, hey, you know what we're doing? Sitting back here backstage, and we're super bored. Why don't you design us a Kukri we could use with Kali martial arts? I was like, okay, cool. So that's what we did. And the small knife, I decided that we shouldn't make, and we should only make the folder in its place. So we did the folder and the full-size Kukri, which are available. If you go through Doug's website, you can get the full-size Kukri, and if someone wants the folders, they're on Tactical Elements.
Okay.
From AJ.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're big fans of Doug for sure. We actually go out of our way to highlight the Doug cam moments. Like this past season, he hasn't been able to do as much of the testing because he had surgery. So
he hurt his arm, yeah.
Yeah, so they show him in the background when other people are testing a lot of times, and he has the big smile on his face. Yeah. So we highlight that. I'm actually wearing his
Dual
shirt.
Keel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Doug's a good guy. So me and Doug are pretty tight, and me and Will are tight. And it's sometimes it's hard to. Sometimes you make relationships, and like I tend to I get along with certain personality types, and so like me and Will, like Will was like, and then I don't know what happened. I think he might have smacked me in the face one day in an episode. I think he smacked me. He goes, quit falling asleep, and he smacked me, and I was like, you hit like a little kid. What do I do about it? And I think we had some kind of a ruckus going on there, but after that, I was like, we were buddies, But Will's a good dude. I love Will, love Doug. We're tight. I can get along with everybody else. I don't really know the other guys real well. Jay is a master bladesmith. I think he got his master's in 2009. I've never worked with him. We did one episode together, and him and Dave Baker did a lot of Shoot Me the Bird. I'm sure they cut all that out of the episode, but it was fun for me. But and I think that's cool. They're great guys, and they do their thing, and I do my thing, and it's for fun. One of the things that I want people to remember is Forge and Fire this is going to be like the taboo, like it's a television game show.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you knew that. All right. So sometimes they would say, we want you to cut this piece of tile or this barbed wire or whatever. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. So, but I would do it anyway. But I would also go, my episodes, I tested everything that we made. Like, so if they said, we need someone to make a knife out of golf clubs, because I'd go test all the golf clubs. I'd see which one I could forge weld it, make it stick, and do something out of it in about 15 minutes, or barbed wire, whatever. It didn't matter what it was. I'd make sure it would work, because I didn't want someone, I was like, it's not right to just let these cats go at it crazy. And a lot of people come on the show, they're amateurs. Every now and then you get a professional, but most people are they're enthusiasts, they're passionate, they love this thing, and they want to go for it. And every now and then you got somebody who's just totally, they're kind of full of poop. And I'm sure you've seen those episodes, and that's really funny. So.
What has been your favorite Forged and Fire episode?
That might be the one I did.
Yeah.
That's the one. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. What are you talking about? I know I maybe briefly described that. So my favorite episode was the one I competed in, which was the first one. That's the pilot, and we did that in Seattle, and that was a lot of fun. And it was like when they called me, they said, "Yeah, we want to do a show where 2 people compete to make a sword together," and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I really, at that time, I should have got an attorney and sign a non-disclosure. I was like, okay, here's my idea. Let me tell you what it is.
Yeah.
But I couldn't because I was excited about this and I wanted to see it fly. So I told them about something that my wife came up with back in 2010 based on like the Iron Chef concept. You know, it's like you have four bladesmiths, unknown materials. We had 2 hours to make a complete knife. So in 2 hours, we'd make a complete knife. So the first time we did Battle of the Bladesmiths was in 2010. It was me, a guy named Jim Rodabaugh, Bert Foster, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And I wish I did. But it's if you do a little search, you'll find it'll pop up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have attorneys calling me all the time. They're like, you should do something about this. I says, nope. We're not doing nothing about this. This is a good thing, and it's going to keep on going. But it's so we did this thing, and we made a knife, and it had forged ground heat-treated handles, and then you had to cut with it. And I think they may have extended it 2.5 hours because one of the guys wasn't quite done. But that was forged in fire. I mean, we were doing the same thing. So I told them this whole gig. I said, this is what you do. This is how you do it, and da-da-da-da-da. And they were like, well, where would we do this? And I was like, you could go to Seattle to my buddy Dave Lish's shop because he had a Studio 4, which he had a teaching facility. It was big enough. He had presses, hammers, forges, everything that 4 people could get in there and compete. Am I talking too much?
No, this is great. This is we're fascinated.
4 people could compete. So it was me. It was Matthew Parkinson. Everybody knows Matthew Parkinson, Matt Parkinson. He's a champion on the first season. David Goldberg, he was a champion on the first season, and Guy Harris, champion on the first season. So I went up against them, and they gave us a hockey puck piece of steel, and we had 2 presses and 1 tire hammer, and they knew I was going to use that tire hammer, so let the air out of that hammer. So that was really, was like, what's a tire hammer, right? It's like a power hammer, old mechanical style, but it runs on a tire instead of a big flywheel.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, we made a chopper. So I made my signature style, which is a recurve with the fin, and it was sexy. We had to do a hamon, on it.
Yep.
And we did that. I noticed that people have a lot of rules when they make knives, and I was kind of noticing that amongst the makers. And the guys with the most rules were losing. And then the guys with the least knowledge were losing. But the guys who were willing to adapt and just be like, they would just fight and go forward, they would do well. So anyway, it was eliminated down to me and Guy Harris, and then we were challenged to make a Roman Gladius. So I made a Roman Gladius, I did Damascus, I did an African Blackwood handle, and my test, I figured it's like if I can cut up, I had a 35-gallon oil drum, and I just cut it up to little pieces with my sword, and it didn't hurt it. So I was like, yeah, there's nothing they can do to it to hurt it. And I had a struggle part, and there is a way to get this video. I don't know if I can tell you about it, but I'm sure someone out there has it.
Yeah,
if
maybe you could text me about it later, maybe. It doesn't have to be on the recording.
It's top secret. Like somebody stole it and gave it to me, so I don't know. But it's out there. Somebody can pass it along to you.
Sure.
But anyway, it was fun. We had a good time. So Guy and me, we come back. We go to some dirty old factory in New Jersey where I know they filmed some Soundgarden videos because they had all these light bulbs hanging down one place, and I was like, this is kind of cool. And we did our competition, and I won. And so I got $10,000, but I got to keep my sword. I wouldn't let them have that, and I got to keep my knife.
Nice.
And so I actually sold both of those later on because I'm a bladesmith and I was broke. So but it was a lot of fun. And the only thing I kind of wish that they had remembered was that me, that my friend Dave Lish, we had helped make this thing like work. We had really made it work, and I didn't hear anything for a while. That was 2014, and then they called me back to be a contestant, and I was a little pissed off. And I was busy, I was making knives. That's my job. I'm a full-time knife maker, so I didn't go. But then later on, they wanted to interview me for a judge, so I went back and I did that in 2016 and part of 2017, and I had a lot of fun. We had a lot of good times.
Awesome.
Great. That's great.
I don't know. Do you want to?
Yeah,
You want to do that?
Ask it.
All right. So, what do you think of knife or death?
It's not an original idea. It is basically the cutting competitions, which is something that a lot of the bladesmiths started a long time ago, and it's kind of interesting. These things aren't new. These are just ideas that have been gathered together by producers will call, because kind of like the truth about producers, they're kind of snakes, and they'll call you and say, hey, what do you think about da 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 da? And someone like me, because we're makers, we're very excited about sharing our craft because we want the world to see it. So we'll go, oh man, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Yeah. Like, oh, that's cool. And the whole time they're taking notes, I'm like, yes, this is a great idea for a show. We'll take this one, make it on a TV show. It'll be big. So I like that it gets some exposure to handmade knives and knife making. I love that. I love that about Forged in Fire. But none of these ideas are original to a production company or a television company. They started in the grassroots. They started with individuals like me. There's other bladesmiths out there. We made these things happen. We made it come to the light. And the cool thing is that they are there. The trade-off is that you have to pass this along to a production company that's going to produce it for entertainment. So I offered to you guys, it's like watching Forged in Fire to learn how to make blades is not a good idea. Watching Forged in Fire to be excited, to be inspired to make blades, to go out there and say, oh man, I want to do that, that's great. But watching things there, you're getting so little information. It's not enough. It's not enough to have some foundation. You want a good foundation to build those things on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't really like, my opinion about the show is I think it's cool that it's out there. I don't watch the shows. I watched them live when I was doing this, but I don't really watch the shows. I'm working on some other things right now that I want to share because they're important. It's important to get out of the Walmart mentality. It's important to get out of the big box store. I'd like to see all those things go away. I'd like to see people realizing, hey, you know what? I don't have to buy furniture from the big box store. I can go buy it from Jimmy. He lives down here, or Sandy, or whoever's making this stuff. There's men and women making things across this country that are wonderful, and it could be from knives to furniture to cars, motorcycles to apple pie to beer. I'm just saying. And get this, and it's awesome. And I want people to remember, be a maker, not a taker. It's very important.
Right,
I know that, I get heartfelt about this, and I'm not crying yet, okay?
It's good, man.
You can see with number 7.
Number 7. So, when you were judging a blade, when you were on the Forged in Fire, was there anything in particular that you're specifically looking for right off the bat when you start looking at a blade?
Yeah, I'm looking for the best attributes of the knife. It's very easy to see the worst attributes of a knife, and there are few people, and you've watched the show, so sometimes you'll see a knife, you're like, wow, that dude made that in 3 hours, wow. So I look for the best attributes of the knife. I look at the things that I like, and I try and speak of those things. It's very easy to find the faults. That's not hard at all. I have 30,000 plus hours experience making knives, because people go, what's that mean? Because somebody said, well, how many years you been making knives? And you could say how many years, but because you've been making knives for 20 years and you made a knife a year for 20 years does not give you 20 years experience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you have 30,000 hours experience, you begin to notice the difference. So when someone asks me, I say, here's what I like about the knife. And when the knife failed, I would say, here's why the knife failed. Now, what upset me a lot of times is it wasn't me. It was just, it's just the way the things go. It's the producers. They would give them terrible materials to make knives out of, just like no one would ever use these things, but again, it's entertainment, and they're doing a show, and they have to do something different they think is exciting. So they would give them this garbage, and I would always say it's hard enough to make a knife that's really good out of the highest quality materials available, and that's hard enough. And if that show ever did that, it would be like, wow, it's still hard, it's still difficult, it's still tricky. Even when we did that, I don't know if you guys saw the Kukri episode.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, oh, these guys all know how to make kukris. And this one guy's, well, I've been working in this shop for 28 years, da-da-da-da. He couldn't forge to save his little butt. And it was funny to me. I'm just going, oh, no. There's, two guys on there, they could kind of forge. It's hard. A kukri is a hard knife to make when you have the best materials and the best equipment. So when you're watching these people forge, they have the guts to come on the show. They have the heart and the spirit and the fire to say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm on here. Or I do know what I'm doing, and I'm going to give it my best. And so that's why everyone on there should be respected and honored. Even if they freak out, even if they lose their mind and run off the stage, even if they do all kind of crazy stuff, they're due respect. And I don't care if they tell a story to get on there. It doesn't matter to me. They're there. And I love them and I respect them.
Yeah, I mean, what was there's one episode this season where they were given these springs about this big. I'm like, what the fuck are they gonna do with that? So, one guy's pulling apart.
I was hanging out with that kid last week, and one of the kids on the show, he was awesome. He didn't win, but he was like, man, I was so happy they gave me these stupid little springs, and I didn't know what to do because I didn't know how to do canisters. And I'm like, canister is not hard, but so he just forged welded them all together, old school style. I was like, man, you did great. You did the best you know. And people love that. People love the heart. Some of the most fun contestants aren't necessarily the contestants that won. They're the contestants it's like that guy's heart. Everybody loves that guy,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, sure.
Oh. In terms of beginning bladesmiths, what items should they not cheap out on when they're first starting out? Like, what's the one that you would really invest in?
Okay. Well, we know we live in America, and money is always changing its value, and it never is worth more. It's always worth less. So what I recommend is, here's my philosophy. Very wealthy people can afford to buy crappy tools because they can replace them. But poor people, aspiring bladesmiths, artists, all the like, artists are always broke. And buy the best tool you can buy the best anvil you can find, buy the best grinder you can buy, because that's money in the bank. So if you buy a Wilmot or a grinder from Travis Wirtz or any of these guys making these great grinders, you got something that doesn't lose its value. If you buy a hammer from Big Blue, you see a Big Blue hammer on a show, buy a Big Blue hammer. It doesn't lose its value. It's always worth whatever they're selling for the hammers for now. So if I bought a Big Blue 5 years ago and I paid $4,999, well, now they're selling them for $7,000. Guess what my Big Blue's worth? $7,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying. So the wisest blacksmith or bladesmith, sounds like somebody's chainsawing down there. I don't know if y'all can hear that. I'm at 7,500 feet. But buy the best tools you can buy. Don't skimp on your tools. I mean, broke-ass people go out there, buy brand new trucks every year, brand new cars. They'll spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on something that's in 5 years is worth nothing. Buy a great anvil. Buy a great grinder. Buy a great hammer. But first, go and take a class.
Yes.
Go and take a class. You want to take a class with me? I'm easy to find. Night Forge Studio. You can take a class with many people across the country. There's a lot of Theo Naz is a great bladesmith. He lives in New York City. A lot of people live within 100 miles of that area. You can go take a class with Theo. He's a good teacher. He's a good bladesmith. New England School of Metalsmiths is the best school that you can actually go to. The New England School of Metalsmithing. It's in Lewiston, Auburn. It's in Auburn, Maine.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
It's a great place. And if you're up there, go there, take a class. You will love it.
Okay, cool.
But I teach classes. This is seek them out. Seek out your teachers. Go find those places. Go take that class and then go, man, I really love this. I want to buy an anvil. I want to find a grinder. I want to do all this stuff. You can buy all these tools new. get one new if you want to, but buying a new one is, say I got $100 and I want it to be worth $300 in 5 years. Buy new tools. And I'm talking about a new power hammer, a new press, a new anvil. Those things. Get those. They work great. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Because I hear people say, well, I don't have the money for that. I said, nobody does either. I don't either. Nobody else does.
True.
But you go and buy a soda pop 2 or 3 times a day. It's like, I'm going to go to Starbucks twice a day. That's $5 a day. $5 a day times 30. Duh, do the math.
Yeah.
Understand.
Are there any projects people should do when first starting out to get a feel for shaping metal and maybe even trying to make a blade other than, going to a class, but on their own?
Yeah.
What should they
learn about blacksmithing? Get a piece of this hard plasticine clay and play with that clay. Make a wooden hammer. A wooden hammer. You can use a wooden table and forge that clay, and you'll see how steel moves. The fact is that the clay has the same plasticity at room temperature as the steel will have when it's 2,300 degrees. So when you hit the steel when it's 2,300 degrees, it's going to go dunk. And when you hit the clay with a wooden hammer, it's going to go boom. It's going to do the same thing.
Wow.
Moves the same direction. And it's a great teacher. It's the easiest thing I could tell anybody. You want to learn how to forge something you don't know? Forge clay.
Oh, neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's something we can,
We
easily,
can do that.
We can easily go out. My Teresa here is very much into crafting, and she's got a whole couple cupboards full of that sort of stuff, and some good sculpting clay and stuff like that. So that's something we can definitely try out.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm excited when I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm gonna try forging. What should I do?" And I just say, do that and see if you like it. Make anything, make things, be a maker. It's the most important thing that you might figure out in this culture. We are not a culture of makers. We can get back to being a culture of makers, and that also means, like I said before, make a difference. Let somebody in when you're driving your car. Open the door for somebody. Smile. It's the making of the difference starts with you, not with the stupid political system, not with all this other garbage we think about. It starts with you.
I agree. I think we all do. So we know that the main set for shooting the show is based in New York City. Now I think Brooklyn or something like that is what.
Yeah, it used to be in Bushwick, but I'm not there anymore. So I heard they lost that to Beat Bobby Flay.
Oh, really?
Now they're in Connecticut somewhere.
Oh, maybe. Okay,
Stanford,
so maybe Stanford, Connecticut.
It was in Bushwick for a long time. So Bushwick is northern Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But now it's shot in Connecticut.
Well, we kind of had that idea. We had seen Jay Nielsen post something on Instagram, and he tagged Connecticut, and we're in Connecticut. So we're like, oh, damn, they're in Connecticut doing
Stanford,
this.
somewhere in Stanford, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding. So,
Connecticut is not that big. I'm sure you can ride your bicycle anywhere you want to go in Connecticut.
They filmed Jerry
2
Springer
hours
down
and
in
you're out of it.
Stanford, so
yeah, I think they do have Jerry Springer and a few, like Maury Povich and stuff. I probably shot at the same studio.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So, okay. You guys want to ask
last
another
one?
one?
You can go ahead, John.
Yeah, yes.
do you travel to any blade conventions throughout the year?
I normally do Blade Show. This is the first time I did not do Blade Show, and I have a confession to make. I didn't do it because I very much I had fun doing Forged and Fire, but I'm a bladesmith. I was a well-known bladesmith before I ever did Forged and Fire, and I just did an event last weekend in Ohio. I mean, I took pictures with hundreds of people. I signed lots of things. 2 weeks before that, I did it in Quantico, Virginia at the U.S. Marine Corps base there. Took lots of pictures. Me and Doug did that. And I do these things all the time. But sometimes I get weary of I want to take your picture because you were on Forged and Fire. And like, I'm a knife maker. I'm a bladesmith. I make things. And I just want to get back to being that. I'm working on a YouTube channel. We had one a while back, and I did a Damascus thing. I mean, we get 2.5 million views on the YouTube channel, so I'm gonna rebuild that. We're going to do a YouTube channel. We're going to do stuff. And I enjoy sharing this, and I really enjoy to teach people and show people. And I make things, and I don't make them because I want to sell them. I mean, I have to, but I do that because it's my passion. And sometimes I get tired of the take my picture. And I don't mind. I always do it. And I'm just saying, if anybody ever wants to take their picture, great. I don't know why you want to take a picture with me, but I'd be happy to do it. And I'm always honored. I'm like, hey, I'm honored that you want to do that. But I just felt like this year would be a good year for me to not go to Blade. But I do events. I actually have my own events in my studio. I've been doing something for years called Metal Mashing Mayhem. And I will have guests come in from all over the world. I've had people come from Belgium, North Carolina. That's a pretty exotic place.
You want to slip me a 20?
$20 bill?
Yeah.
For what?
Chicken wings?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll pay.
Hold on. We got to get some chicken wings.
Who are you talking to?
This is Friends of the Force. This is my buddy, Peter Cole.
What's up?
Hey, man, I don't care if you're a Master Smith or who you are. I need $20 for these chicken wings, man. I need chicken wing money.
I don't have to hire someone to carry my wallet around like you do. I do sell a lot of
That's my last 20. He's a great friend of mine. He's a bladesmith. He's a knife maker.
I'm sorry, I thought I was your apprentice, and now you're just gonna put me down. You know how listen, wait. You know how you're in a relationship with somebody, and you're like, oh no, this girl's just a good friend of mine.
We're not in a relationship.
That's how
These are Pete's kids. I'm not in a relationship.
This girl's a good friend of mine, Pete. Let's make knives in your shop, Pete. You're my apprentice, Pete. We're gonna have a great time together. Good life together, Pete.
Pete, you'll be hearing from my attorney real soon. That's funny.
Jeez.
Pete's a good buddy of mine. We stopped at him and his family's house on our way to Utah. But yeah. What were you asking me? We totally lost that.
We were talking about blade conventions and
yeah, I used to go to blade conventions all over. I mean, I've been from Seattle to here and all over. I do my own thing. I go to Blade Show. I am right now, over the last year, I have been designing and consulting with several companies. I've designed a lot of knives for a long time, and I finally get some kickback from that, and that's really cool. I'm still designing things for other makers that I love dearly. I share my designs with people all the time. If you see something out there that I made and you want to make it and you're a maker, please make that. Now, if you're going to have it commercially made, then we have to talk. But if you want to make it yourself, I'm happy for you to do so. But the next show I will be doing will be my own event. I'll be having something at my studio in Kingsport. My plan is October. I'll have a food truck. I'll have a band. I'll have some guests, bladesmiths, blacksmiths. Very important to say, blacksmithing is the root of all bladesmithing. And if you really want to be a badass bladesmith, you learn how to forge every different shape, every different design element that you can think of. Because bladesmithing is just different shapes of triangles, basically, that you're forging long or wide. It doesn't matter if it's a sword or whether. There's a lot of different geometry in there. We can get very detailed and very specific, and there's all kind of theories and more hypotheses than theories. But I'm just saying, you got to be a good maker. Learn from the masters.
Well, we definitely want to do that ourselves, and we're just getting more and more.
Yeah, I don't
ramped up
just
and
throw
excited.
that out there. I'm just saying. It's like,
Well, it was just Father's Day, and Teresa got me a book that was, I don't remember exactly, but it's like basically the how to make a knife from beginning to end. And
who wrote it?
So it's upstairs. We could go grab. I don't know.
Is it Harsulis? Jim Harsulis?
There's 2 authors on it. Teresa's gonna go run and grab it quick. But it looked like it was a pretty good source. It had some pictures and stuff in there too, alongside with some of the information on what you should do to start off.
Did you tell him?
Tell him what?
It was me, guys. You know all that Kukri stuff? It's like Jason invented the Kukri. You know how he does that? And like they thought he was like, yeah, man, all that. I invented the Kukri.
Wow.
There was never a Kukri even before I'd made a Kukri, and then Jason tried to say he invented it. I invented the Kukri.
He went back before the times of Alexander the Great.
Did he
We do
invent the
live
time
feeds.
machine too?
Yeah, we do live feeds sometimes, and there'll be like a couple thousand people watching, and it gets so stupid because he's just jabbing me and messing with me. We have a lot of fun. Don't take this too serious. Have a lot of fun and do this and enjoy it. Be passionate.
Yeah. So the book that I got is called Basic Knife Making from Raw Steel to a Finished Stub Tang Knife, and it's by Ernst Hellwig and Jürgen Rosinski.
Oh, I have seen that. I don't know those fellas. I think they're from a Scandinavian country.
You didn't even try Cyberniker.
Yeah, I didn't even try that. It was like I didn't even read part of it.
Steigenliker. Yeah.
But
What's
yeah, it looked like
wild
an
is,
interesting book. It was a
you know, the people
recommendation.
Yeah, those are great. There's some videos out there by Brian Brazil. Great videos on how to forge. Forging a point is the key to making a knife. And Brian has some great direct forging techniques. There is another kid named Alex Steele.
Yeah,
Before
I've
he
seen
got
his.
into making knives, he has some great little techniques. He actually learned from Brian Brazil. I don't know what his knives look like, but I think he's a great kid, and he's doing something cool. He's sharing his information. He's a maker, and I really love that. Liam Hoffman, he's a friend of mine. He's got a book on blacksmithing. Go to Amazon, buy Liam's book.
Okay.
Buy Liam's book. Support your local blacksmith. And remember, be a maker and not a taker. It's very important. Share that. Make that a movement. That's for everybody. That's for everything that's done. Make a difference. Make something change. Starts with you.
I actually ordered one of your shirts yesterday. I didn't tell Teresa about it, but I did buy
Man,
one.
we got the new shirt. You ain't seen that yet. We're going to launch that sometime in the next few days.
Oh, okay. I'll buy that one for
It's got the Be a Maker,
Teresa.
not a taker logo, but there's a gorilla forging a blade and an alligator going like, oh, that's cool, and a raccoon looking at it, and a turtle and a bear.
I saw
Hey,
your
what?
live video from last week where you showed the design. Like, because I think you held up the design of what it looked like last week. It was pretty cool.
No, it's okay. Hold
Oh,
on.
that's good.
Come
I'm trying food now.
That's okay. No, that's just my wife.
This is my
That's
friend
just my
Liz.
Hello.
Taste of pie, but he barely knows me. It's all right. He's at my house, but not at my house making eyes at me. But you just say, hey, this is Pete. This is a knife maker I know. It's fun, you're never getting off my deck.
Stop, man. I'll jump off the deck onto your truck.
Well, that's all the questions that we have. If you have anything else you wanted to talk about, feel free. Otherwise, we're pretty much tapped on questions.
No, I think it's cool that you guys are doing this. That way, when I saw that you had it going, and I just want to support that. I enjoyed doing Forged in Fire. I am doing other things that because I want to share, and I don't want to do a game show. I want people to be excited about making. I want people to be excited about what they're doing. When people see you doing something different or they're excited about it, you share it. You share the thing. And I think that's very important what you're doing, and I really appreciate it very much, and I want to support that.
Well, we appreciate you coming on here,
Thank
and we learned a lot, and yeah, this was great, and I might send you a text to find out a little bit more information on coming down to your shop and seeing what you have there.
Yeah, what size, if you will text me your shirt sizes, I will send you, we had some other shirts made, so I'll send all of you a shirt.
Oh,
The one that I'm doing is through Bonfire, but the new one will be the same thing. And what's cool about that is I don't have to keep track of it. They print it and ship it for me.
oh.
So it works out real well. And you know, like my theme, like I like to do, my son drew Tristan Knight. He's a freelance artist, and he drew the idea because I'm so sick of all these skulls and all this kind of stuff. I'm just like, I'm sick of that. I'm sick of,
Yeah.
I'm tired of that stuff. I want people to lighten up a little bit, you know. So it's like I got an alligator going, hey, this is cool, and it's a gorilla. I'm a gorilla. My dad told me there was a big silverback gorilla living in the attic when I was a kid to make me do stuff. So I believe it. And there's giants out there too, and a gorilla in the upstairs. He was like, "Yep." I was like, "Okay, Dad, whatever you say."
That's pretty cool.
It was fun.
Well, great. I guess we're good then. Thanks again, and we are doing a show. So thanks everybody for watching and listening to the interview. And hopefully we'll have this up in the next week or so. We'll post it up on YouTube, and I'll send you the information if you want to put it out there at all, share it, and all that good
I'll
stuff.
share it. Let me know, and I'll be happy to share it. I told people I didn't know if we were doing live or whatever. I usually do just live feeds, so I told people about it. So I'll go back and correct that because they'll be like, well, where's that thing you were supposed to do?
No.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I'll be happy to share it.
Great. Thanks a lot. And I'll text you soon. Now I'll definitely send you our shirt sizes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, catch you later.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.